Joining us on stage from JP Morgan, Executive Director Marla Mitelman.
Hello, everybody. How are you all? Did everyone have a nice lunch? Is everyone having a lovely conference? Excellent. So first of all, let's just say thank you to all the organizers, because it's been pretty spectacular so far. And thank you for inviting me to speak. So my name's Marla Mitelman. I am an Executive Director of Experience Design at JP Morgan in London. My first time in Vienna. It's been very exciting to be here. And it's only my first time properly speaking on a stage like this, so please be gentle with me. So before I start, I actually want to just sort of tell you a little bit of a story. So it's a story I'm hoping pretty much everybody in this room can relate to, whether you're in product, research, but most importantly, UX and design. And I think it's a story that hopefully is going to resonate really, really well. So it's about people like us, people who go to work every day and want to do their best work and design beautiful experiences for people in the world. So if you're anything like me and you've worked in lots of places over the years, you will have seen a lot of sort of patterns occurring. And one of the things that I'm going to talk about today is something that's a real passion topic for me. But before we do that, I'm going to get you to close your eyes. So try not to fall asleep. I know you've had a big lunch. Thank you. So I want you to imagine a world where nobody asks you, nobody has to approve your work, when nobody tells you what to do, where you're trusted and you're empowered to do your best work, to problem solve. Now, open your eyes. Are we there yet? Okay, all right. But I think we could be, so bear with me, because I'm going to take you on a little journey. But before we do that, a little bit about me. Marla Mitelman, I'm originally from London, but I spent 25 years working in Australia. I started working in finance in about 2007 for the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, and I was an online specialist because they didn't know what to call me. And I used to work in UX across pretty much all the transformations in Australia. If there was a bank there, I've probably worked on an interface for it. Can't guarantee it went live, though, and I'm pretty sure we can all relate to that in the room as well. And for the last decade or so, I've been managing design teams around the world. So in Australia for BCG Digital Ventures, in Singapore, and now in London for JP Morgan. And I lead a team in London called Rapid Experiments. It's a tiny, tiny team of 4 people made of coaches and creators. And what we do is we work with designers across the whole of the organization of the part of the bank I work in. Now, there's 2 different parts of the bank. I work in what's the corporate and investment bank. That's not the Chase Bank, which is all the cool retail stuff. Used to work there, not anymore. But we sit across 5 lines of business, and that includes everything to operations. And we have a lot of designers to look after and a lot of designers to care for, and they span all around the world. But when you have a lot of designers, one thing you really want to do is you want to make a great environment for them to work in. So this is a mission that my team and the design operations team joined forces to create. And it's something we feel really passionate about. It is to help our designers deliver better quality work faster, but most importantly, feel happy and empowered whilst they do it. Easy, right? Yeah. So let me just take you back about 10 years again. So when I first started as a design leader, I was absolutely shitting myself, quite frankly. Didn't know what to do. I'd just been promoted. I'd been a designer for so long, and I was so used to just crafting experiences and just looking after myself. And it meant that I had to take a big step back. And I started to take that step back, and what it meant was I was observing how designers were operating, how they were working, but also how they were being treated. And I started to spot a really bad pattern, and I'm sure it's something that you guys have seen and probably felt today. So tell me if you've seen this. I call it the design perception problem, but it's also this. Does this resonate with you guys? Yeah, I see it everywhere. It's been happening for a really long time. And so you guys know what I'm talking about. It's a really, really hard one. It really is. And I really thought after so long of user experience design being mainstream and people knowing what it takes to have a great experience and what goes into that, that it would be a little bit different by now, that we wouldn't be still fighting for our seat at the table and yelling and all of that. But then I realized, hold on, maybe it's me. Maybe the problem isn't other people. Maybe the problem is me. I see this happen all the time, and I think what we do is we get really good at being told to fight for design and go into battle and defend and educate and evangelize and all those big words that we hear on design Twitter. But really, I don't think it's right. I think it's all of us. I think these slides are going way faster than me, by the way. I'm not pressing those buttons, but I'll do it now. But it was me, it was you. You've already seen this. It's all of us. It is mostly us. And so you are probably going to hate me for this, but I think we've made the problem worse. I think we've been reading a lot of the wrong articles. We've been trying to do the same thing again and again and again, but what is the definition of madness? It's doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So who's for trying something different? You with me? Okay, I can really feel the passion in the room, guys. Are you with me? Yes. Thank you. Okay, so if we want to be empowered, and a word that's been used a lot at this conference today, and it's been great because it sort of set the scene for what we're going to talk about today. And if we want to be trusted, because trust is really the key word here. We want to be trusted by our users when they use our products, but most importantly, we want to be trusted for the work that we do. So if we want that, then we probably need to start using those same techniques that we apply to other people in the work that we do to ourselves. And what I have put together and what we're working on with JP Morgan and what we're transporting the design team through at the moment are some experiments. We want to be used for our heads, not just for our hands. We don't want to be told to make it pretty anymore. That's just really demoralizing. And at the end of the day, as designers, we're creative problem solvers. We want to come into work and we want to be able to have the freedom to do what we do when we want to do it. But we also want to be able to be trusted and have that intrinsic motivation. So being told what to do all the time is not motivating at all. It's very disempowering. And if we have the intrinsic motivation to do our work, we'll deliver better outcomes, and we'll deliver better value for the business. So in the spirit of trying something different, we have to acknowledge what's not working, right? And we've been talking about design maturity for a really long time now. So what about just trying something completely different and focusing our efforts elsewhere? So the first thing I'm going to talk about is measurement. We can do a really shitty job at measuring what we do. And if you can't measure it, you can't really improve it because you don't have a baseline. And UX isn't a luxury. It is essential. It's an essential part of what we do and to create really great products, digital and offline, service experiences. But if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So the first thing we need to do is start measuring what we do. And my team at JP Morgan, set up by an amazing guy called John Jones, we measure everything from events to stopwatch testing. And I'm going to give you a little example. So this is something that was done with a very simple PDF report. I'm not going to go into too much detail of this, but we redesigned this report, and we just cut the reading time down from 5 minutes to 2 minutes. And there was nothing technical about this. We just did a very, very quick redesign on the report, and we did stopwatch testing to show the difference between the before and the after. And the cool thing about this is we can measure how much time that saves. We can measure how much time those 400 traders who are reading this report were getting back into their day. And then when we scaled it up, we knew that we were going to get $12 million worth of savings. So when people say design's expensive, because I've heard that my entire bloody career, what a load of rubbish. Because it's really expensive not to have design. So what I'm going to do is take you through some challenges that we've found, and I've put them into some themes, and then I'm going to give you some tips. These are going to go pretty fast because we don't have a huge amount of time. So what I'm going to do is hopefully get you to take your cameras out, and you can take them as you go. Please come and talk to me afterwards if you have any questions, because I've tried to give some good summaries there. So the first one's communication, and we heard this a bit as well from Meg. Have a look at this little word salad behind me. Hands up if you've used some of those words in meetings to communicate your designs. Yeah, and we all have. Of course we have, because that's how we talk about our craft. But the challenge is that when we're talking to our partners, and definitely in a large bank like JP Morgan, a lot of this gets lost in translation. You know, if someone is being told about cognitive load, that doesn't really mean a lot to them if they're not going to get that widget for their function to do this for that later. It doesn't matter. And a lot of the time what we do is I think we use these words to sound a bit clever. So don't. Just don't. Just don't use them. And so, like, these are really simple things that I think we can experiment with and try and change. So the first tip is just confirm you're speaking the same language. We found people on different teams using the different words. We've found people in the same team using different words. So just create a glossary and just make sure that you all understand what that means. Use clear words for understanding, not confounding. I think sometimes we like to show how smart we are. And I don't know if that's doing us any favors. So be really, really clear. Don't say validate a prototype. You could just say we're going to quickly build it and test it. People know what you mean. So adapt your language. Speak like a business professional, not an artist. Now, Mig was great earlier, and I loved his presentation. And he's very lucky. He gets to work in an environment where I think he can use the word craft and not be laughed out of the room. I work in a bank, and it's really hard, like most of you here, to be able to use that word. We need to speak like business professionals, not artists, because those are the people that we're working with. So we need to learn the language of the business as well. And there's a lot of mumbles around the UX world around this. And I'm not saying that you need to go out and have an MBA. There are some great books out there. The Personal MBA by Josh Kaufman is fantastic. But my recommendation is learn the language of the business. We should be really understanding what they need to achieve so we can speak to them in their languages. So avoid esoteric, designerly terms in meetings when you're speaking with a broader audience. Don't expect others to learn design speak. We are the minority. We should adapt. We're the ones that really need to do the work here. And communication is all about context, same as design. Who are you talking to? What is the context that you need to adapt your communication to be? And then the thing that I found, and I don't know if this is something that you guys see at all, but designers presenting their work. So I hate the phrase soft skills personally, because there's nothing soft about communication. It's one of the most important things that we need to learn is to how to communicate in a business context. But most importantly, presenting our design work. How many times have we all been in a room or some kind of critique where someone's just whacked it out on the table and gone, what do you think of that? And you're like, I don't know. What are you showing me? So I think we could really do better at educating ourselves and our designers on how to share their work and how to take people on that journey, because this is how we build trust. So start with the background, set the scene. The most important thing the point I always think here is think of your work like a maths problem. You don't want to jump to the answer because no one's going to understand how you get there. You need to take people on that journey and practice and practice and practice how you do this as well, because this is how you build trust and credibility with our partners. That 15 minutes you have to present your work can make or break the project sometimes. Collaboration. It's my favorite. This is really hard, isn't it? And then it got really hard with COVID and remote collaboration and hybrid and all of that. And collaboration's great, but there's a big difference between a collaboration and the seagulls and the hippos. Do you know who I mean when I say that? Yeah. So we have to be very careful about how we do collaboration. And one of the things that happens a lot is it's unclear who does what. I use this as a lot because you can see that we all blend into each other's roles, and that is a brilliant thing. It's a fantastic thing. We all have an area of specialty as well, though, and we need to preserve that. We need to be able to make sure that we can stay in our lane, but we can bleed and be empathetic to each other as well. And so have you ever been confused about who does what in these situations? Like, how many times have you been there? I was talking to someone outside earlier who's a PO, actually, and they said, that they work really, really well and collaborate with the product teams. Well, we have 350 designers plus working across all these different lines of business, and they all work very differently. And it can be very, very hard for people who've been in a previous role, who might have been a business analyst in a traditional technological kind of delivery framework, to now suddenly not be responsible for the solution. And so how do we embrace that? Well, we can do that with some really great collaboration forums. So the IKEA effect, we've heard about this before. So this is actually a cognitive bias where if you build something or create it yourself, you bestow a higher value on it than if you just bought it off the shelf. And Nike use this really, really well. So if you look at the return rates for their customized shoes, they're like super, super low compared to anything else. And they polled people, After they made IKEA furniture, how much do you value it? And the cost went up. So everybody wants to be part of the design process. And let's be honest, everyone's a user, so they think they're a designer too. And I swear to God, if I polled everybody in this room, I bet you would all have a similar experience to me. Everyone's a designer. So let's make them designers by bringing them into the process, but creating a really good forum for it. So we use this to basically our advantage in various ways. I'm going to give you a few examples of why we do this. But the whole purpose of the IKEA effect is, how can we bring people together and let them feel that they touched that button, or implemented that widget, or crafted that piece of copy? Because we all do want to feel involved in that process. So let's give people room to feel that way. So make space for your collaboration and plan it well, though. Has anyone here ever been told to whip up a workshop for the next day? I have. Yeah, that's a bit shit, isn't it? It's really hard to do. And it basically means that you're not setting everything off for a good start. When you're doing collaboration, we've got to be really thoughtful and really organized. We've got to be very, very careful about how we do it and put strong controls in place. We want to make sure that people get the opportunity to speak, but don't take everybody off track. So, for example, how many times have you done a design walkthrough of your work, but you never got past the first or the second screen? Yeah, that happened to me as well. I was once on the 42nd iteration of something when that happened, and I just wanted to throw my toys out the pram. Anyway, so run silent design walkthroughs. Anyone tried these before? No? Oh, awesome. We should compare notes afterwards. So how do you do them? Well, first of all, you've got to make sure you've got time to run through the designs twice, because you're going to do it twice. But really what we need to do is make sure that everyone has the room to speak. So what do you do? Hold on, I think I've got some tips for this, so let me just go back. The first one is here. So cameras on, microphones off unless speaking, no interruptions, and you need a pretty strong facilitator for this, because you want to stay focused. Off-topic conversations going to a parking lot. Anything else? Thank you, we've noted it, it goes down here. And silence is acceptance, and I'll come back to that one later. But make sure you've got time to run through the designs twice. Whilst you're running through it, you want to make sure that everybody is taking notes and placing them to wherever they have a question. And then once you've run that once, you do it again and you go through all the questions. And it sounds like it's going to take a really, really, really long time and it'll be a massive pain in the ass. It's actually super cool, goes really, really well, and you actually get to say what you wanted to say without being sort of, cut off before that point. And the purpose is basically to get everyone aligned and to have those environments to bring everyone into the design process. So please, if you haven't tried it, give it a try. Let me know how it went. I love this. This is one of my favorites. Someone taught me this about 20 years ago, and they said, if no one replies, silence is acceptance. And I went, oh, I'm so stealing that. So have you ever been in that session where someone comes in and takes a huge poo and then just gives you a bit of feedback and then swims off and everyone starts scrambling? Yeah, it happens all the time. Well, this isn't going to fix that, I'm afraid. Sorry, I was hoping that you would laugh at that, but you didn't. But you did laugh at that part, so that's better. But when appropriate, silence is acceptance. So, for example, you're in these forums and you give everyone an opportunity to speak up. If they don't speak, then they don't get a chance to influence the design at that point in time. They can later, but that is their moment to raise their reservations and any challenges. And if they don't, well, time is money. That potentially could be $100,000 worth or £100,000 worth of time that we've just saved because someone didn't say something at that point. And we must remember that as well. So silence is acceptance. Try that one too. Let me know how you go. Could you open the design kimono? Metaphorically, of course. Some of the things that I tend to find is that people don't trust us because they don't know what the hell we're doing. We just go off and we go into this black box of design and we go and do stuff and we say words like discovery and research and insights, but then we come back and there's a bit of a ta-da. So if people understand what we do and our stakeholders know how we work, we can build trust into that process as well. So make design an open shop and invite people in. We do something called design check-ins, and no presentation work required. It's not a design critique, it's not a design review session. It's a, this is what we're doing, ask us why, and find out what it informs next. Because every time we're doing a piece of design or creating an artifact, we should know what it informs and how we're going to use it. Because otherwise, you can see how people might think that we're just there to make things pretty. So we run these sort of once a week or twice a week. You just rock up, show your wireframes, show your research, show what you're doing, and just invite opinion and critique if you want it. And compromise. This is the last one. Why is this so hard? At the end of the day, about 10 years ago, I gave a talk called Pragmatic Perfection, and this was an internal talk to my company, and I was absolutely crapping myself then as well. And it was this story about process purity to pragmatic perfection. And I spoke about this because I was talking about a defect that wasn't being fixed. It was like broken to the bottom of the screen. I was dealing with a systems integrator. I won't mention their names. They're very big. And it was so frustrating because they just wouldn't fix this defect that was so clearly broken. And at the end of the meeting, my boss said, "How are you?" And I burst into tears. I just lost it because I was just so frustrated. And I think a lot of the time we feel a lot of frustration in our roles. And I think that's because we have become perfectionists. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being a perfectionist. But sometimes we need to compromise. And when I say compromise, what I mean by that is not forego quality. It's maybe forego quantity. So for example, you're not going to get 100 widgets of exceptional quality, but you might get 5, and you might get 3. So think about what you're doing and compromise so that we can really understand what we want to achieve and get the right result. This next one's quite radical. Dump the double diamond. Thoughts? Oh, someone snorted. That's a good reaction. Excellent. So this is going to sound radical, but just hear me out. I'm not saying don't use these methods, but this is not a linear process. And I think what's happened sometimes is we talk about taking all these steps that we need to take on a journey, but why? What does it inform? Is it necessary? Don't be so married to the double diamond is my advice. And I think what we need to do is really understand why we're doing what we're doing and see what value it provides. And really ask ourselves, does every single piece of design work need deep discovery research? Do we need to research alerts again? Maybe you don't. So this is what we're advocating for. Less design thinking, more design doing. Think about your design thinking toolkit and the double diamond as like a utility belt of methods. You need to whip them out when you need them and apply them at will. And honestly, it's absolutely groundbreaking. All right, always estimate effort to understand capacity. So this always shocked me as a designer when I was an individual contributor. No one ever asked me how long something would take, ever. And yeah, I was really quite fast, but there's better designers than me, but nobody ever asked me that question, and I always found it really confusing. So design should always be estimated, and you guys are hopefully already doing this. But if we don't know how long something takes, how can you compromise? How can you make those trade-offs? The way I always phrase it is, your capacity of your time is a box. As soon as someone asks you to do something else, you have to take something out of that box so you can put that new thing in. Otherwise, we will not be working to our best. But we always need to be able to estimate that, otherwise you're just guessing. And give a little to get a little. At the end of the day, we need to be good people to work with. We need to be fun to work with. We need to be good at our jobs, but we also need to be the kind of people that people trust our opinions and come back to us. So this phrase was given to me a long time ago, and it was put a little bit of sugar on the bread. And what they meant by that is make it pleasant to deal with you. And I think that really gets overlooked. We can't be too precious. We are still operating in a business context. And this one, bite off only what you can chew well. It comes back to the capacity planning as well. If you can't do it well, then maybe you want to break the brief a little bit and try and see if you can change that problem itself. But be realistic. Scope to your deadlines. That's the way that we will deliver value, is also by delivering on time. And my last one is tips for lean research. So we're using this and trialing it on a couple of projects at the moment, where what we're doing is we're running research in parallel. So we're looking at what we currently have and what we've already learned. We're seeing if we can basically just work out what those gaps are. But most importantly, we're doing this as a group as well. So we are working together on this. So basically, the whole plan of this is that we go straight in after any interview and we share our findings together. And what we're doing is we're building up those insights as we go. So we've got things that can live and be tactical and useful now. And then later we're feeding those into insights reports. So make sure you're doing this as a team. Bring your product people into the process and build that understanding and trust. Because at the end of the day, we need to sort of start to shake off this perception that I think has maybe clouded us a little bit for too long. Bring people into your process. Adapt your language to them. Be flexible in how you work. But more importantly, learn about your work and your stakeholders and what their priorities are. Because we are there to service the needs of the business, after all, in this context. So we need to make sure, and I always like to think there are two types of people in the world. There are the people that expect the world to bend around them, and then there are the people that bend to adapt. Try and be the latter. And when I say be inclusive and bring people into it, talk in the right language, how it values or how it delivers value to the business. And when I say value, I mean measure that value, measure everything and quantify it. Time, quality, impact. You didn't get to do that design piece. What did that mean for the business? How many calls did it generate? How many errors? How much time did that put onto someone's process? We can quantify that, and we can show our stakeholders that we are, I don't want to say just as good as them, because everyone's just as good as each other, but we are part of the business, not separate from it. And really, just build trust. That is the key to unlocking empowerment. Build trust, and the game changes. Then you get permission to do what you want. So good luck, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marla. So many great tips. I hope you made also pictures, but as you know, everything is recorded and also will be provided so you can rewatch. Thank you so much. So do we have questions in the audience? Yeah, oh, I see quite a lot. Okay, but then let's start with the audience. I see one at the back. Yeah, could you please bring the mic? Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anastasia. Thanks a lot for presenting. So basically, what I wanted to ask is that you said that during the design critique sessions, we have to concentrate on the subject. I can completely relate to that, but working with amazing designers and trying to think outside the box and seeing a bigger picture, sometimes we can point something out exactly when it's not related to the topic. We had quite a lot of sessions where we wanted to concentrate on the subject, but some of the designers pointed something out which was very critical for the product later. So basically, how should we work? Like, do you have any tips to that? We want to concentrate on what we're talking about, but still we don't want to overlook some critical mistakes in design, you know?
And that's a really interesting one, because it sounds like what you're saying is you've identified new scope that needs to be added but wasn't included in the original brief. Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think it depends on how you work with your product stakeholders as to how you reprioritize that. So the question is, do we want to change the timeline to deliver that with the new scope because we've worked out that the problem is bigger? Or the other one is, can it wait till later? Because those are your choices, and that's probably the advice I'd give. But great question. I'm sure that happens a lot.
Thank you so much. One question the most worried from our remote audience. How do you manage at JP Morgan to keep designers aligned, avoid silos? You know, you have so many designers.
That's a really good question. It's really hard. So I work in very close conjunction with the design operations team, and we've got an amazing group of design program managers as well. And it basically takes an army of people going and supporting those teams and communicating with them constantly. I wouldn't say we're perfect. I don't think perfect exists yet, but we're working really hard to do that. So we have DXD, which is the digital experience design, which is basically the sort of community that holds us together. But all of our designers exist in the lines of business, so we're decentralized as well. So that means that we have to spend a lot of time keeping that community together and keeping them organized. And when we use tools like Jira, so that we can have software that tracks and actually we can quantify, measure, and make transparent the work that we do. So those are the things that we're using at the moment.
Thank you, thank you. And I think we have a last question from the audience for the time. Yes, please, here. Yeah, I can see you. Yeah, in the middle. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, Marla. I'm just wondering, because I'm hearing this on all conferences in the last 10 years, measure it, right?
Yeah.
And nothing bad about that, but what if the others are not measuring? the product, the marketing? How do you make them measure their stuff so we are able to measure ours?
Oh, I wish I had the answer to that question.
We all wish.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? But I think it's. I hate to say the word education, but I mean, I'm going to say something radical. I feel like the design industry has been longer than the product management community, so we can teach them a lot. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, how is product and the business going to even see if their feature or their functionality has even succeeded if they haven't measured it? So, you know, I would potentially position it to them. Again, it's all about sales sometimes, isn't it, this kind of role? Is how will they know if this has been successful if they can't track it, and get them to think of it as it's their problem to solve, because then you can see the benefits. But I would also say we can infer measurement from other things as well. So even if you don't have an analytics instrumentations, there's different ways you can do it. So let's have a chat afterwards if you want to come and grab me.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
thank
Marla.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.